Good afternoon. Thank you all very much for joining us for the opening weekend of 21st Century Out in the First Decade. My name's Nicholas Chambers. I'm one of the curators here at the gallery and part of the curatorium for the 21st Century exhibition. And it's my very great pleasure to have a talk this afternoon with Céleste Boursier-Mougenot, who's made this really quite extraordinary artwork that you can see some video of behind us. It's actually located on the third floor of the gallery. And the reason we're doing this talk here in the cinema rather than in the space is that it's the nature of this piece that we can only have a limited number of people in the gallery space. So I do encourage you to find that work after the talk. Céleste is based in a town called Sète in the south of France and has a background as a composer and also composing for the theatre, but has been producing sound works for a visual art context for galleries and museums really for around 2 decades now. So it's been really quite an extraordinary experience working with Céleste and a large number of other colleagues here at the gallery to put this piece together over the last few months. And we're going to have a bit of a talk about this artwork and the way that it was put together, and then there should be some time for some questions at the end as well. So if we could go to the first slide. So I wanted to start right at the very beginning. So we really started talking with Céleste about making a project here at the gallery towards the beginning of this year. And the first thing we did was we actually sent Céleste some plans of the exhibition space that we were planning on working with. And you had begun working on some ideas just looking at the exhibition plans. And I think one of the things that really I found quite fascinating was that the piece we ended up having in the space was very, very close to what you had envisaged just by looking at the gallery in plan stage before you'd even seen the gallery space. So I wondered if you could just start off by talking a little bit about the way that you conceive a project when you are working at that very kind of early stage, working from plan.
Yes, okay. First of all, I'd like to say hello and thank you for your coming. What was the question?
So the question was, before you came, you made a site visit to the gallery, I believe it was August this year, and you saw the space. And I think this plan that we're looking at here was something that you produced after visiting the space. But even before you came, you had started to have some ideas about how the piece might evolve. It was almost, I think we talked about, it was like writing a score for the exhibition space. I was wondering if you could talk about that beginning of that process for you.
You mean the genesis of the process?
Yeah.
Yes. Each time I need to I have asked the plan of the space, and then it was, I remember I've got some, it was a kind of mistake, something I did not understand exactly how was the space, and the reason why it's very important that I came in July to meet the team of the museum, people who wanted to have this piece or a project from me in this show. Then everything begins really when I'm in the space. And I can see exactly what kind of space this is. And I did start doing drawings. The space usually gives me the line I'm going to follow. It's just at the beginning very technical. I need to know the surface, the height, and to start doing, if I can, for example, stretch wires between the walls. And in the previous working with coat hangers and obstacle strings, the space was smaller, and then it was easier Here it's almost 20 by 20 meters, and to stretch long strings, it was a lot of work, and also it's not exactly. I had to find this idea of to make these instruments.
Mm.
One way was to create a kind of labyrinth, to create orthogonal space crossing strings, and to fill some of the space as a labyrinth. But these have an inconvenience, because when you are producing so much important of the instrument, the structure we did in metal rock wood, I don't want to spend energy in a project and then just after that to have to put down the installation, and then it's like we have to re-begin everything for the next project. So I thought that it was very interesting to think in terms of practice or practicable, that you can really fold the work after it's finished and unfold it in a new space. So it was very, it catch my attention to create this structure, to make them easy to use for next.
Modular units.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But in the same time, it's like it's to create a kind of instrument. It's not acoustic exactly instrument. It's like a machine to create a chaotic vibration or kind of spring reverbs element, as was the reverb rule in the past, with a kind of spring roll. The sound conducted by the material, and its shape is determining some kind of quality of reverbs.
Mm. So I think we can go to the, remote control here. We can go to the next. I have a couple of images now, just looking at the way that this piece was put together. This is just construction work inside the gallery. And I thought it might be interesting for people that haven't seen the work to just explain what the materials were that you used, and also, the different components of the piece. So from we have these forms at the ceiling, which you described as instruments, and then stretched across these we have harpsichord strings.
Yes, yeah.
And so each of these forms, you've stretched harpsichord strings in both directions across these hexagonal forms, and then each has a contact microphone, which you're running down into these audio processors here that are at this stage on the ground of the space. And you spent really quite a lot of time fine-tuning the instruments to get a very particular quality of sound in the space.
It's not exactly like that. So, but I'm tuning the instrument needs to be like a modulation instrument. It's like if you even the model for the patch or the sound processing is like I'm taking, for example, the source can be a radio, people talking. It's just question of intonations and silence and noise. I can really describe the voice like something which is modulating a lot, and it needs to be almost the same. So I can use the model of the radio voice, for example, somebody talking on the radio, and I'm sure that it will work with this instrument. So it's just a question to organize the possibility of from one string to another. It needs to be equidistant, and I'm organizing like that. And then I tune the ensemble, this song, with the processors. So it's like a both part. I mean, it's a hybrid instrument. It's the part is acoustic. It's like a very it's sophisticated, and sometimes it's simple. And I did tune it not with a tuner, but with my ears.
So what, was there a particular quality of sound, a particular ambience that you were trying to achieve?
So I'm doing this kind of sound through different manners, different way, different tools, since maybe 35 years now. And it's like a part of my gen code, probably, I don't know. It's like a totally different instrument, or converge or result to exactly the same kind of music.
So another question I wanted to ask Céleste was, having come from a background as a composer and working a lot to compose sound for theatre, and you began working in a gallery context, I think maybe in the beginning of the 1990s. And so I guess I was interested, for you as a composer, what interested you about working in a gallery context? What was it that a gallery brought to the possibility of composing for you?
Oh yes, it is very important, because since the last century, at the beginning of the last century, we start recording things, the music, for example, and this changed a lot our audio practice as a collective or individual. And also, the second point was, I had a lot of friends who were artists, visual artists, and I found to them that they were more listening process, or more a quality of listening which is more my sensitivity. For example, many visual artists start working on drawing or sculpture, and they can really let the object for days, weeks, or months, and the objects stay in the space of the studio, and they can look at this object through different point of view. And what I'm calling, I have this kind of relationship with the listening, and I need to make an object when I'm doing a project, and to take a kind of distance. I don't want to be too much involved. I want to switch my position from doing things and then listening. And in many of my installations, there is also seats for people to, but for me first, because the position of your body will have some influence on your, for example, listening. I did realize long time ago that I cannot ask people to be immobilized in a concert hall for this type of music. So since historically this has changed, I thought that this music had no beginning, no end, and people have to be free to come when they want, to stay as they want, and there is no lost or lose, what do you say, about the main content of this music if you leave it for a while and come back. It's not like a disco music, so I really respect some composer who can do disco music as in the classical music, and I enjoy a lot their production. But I thought that something was wrong between the situation and the content, so we had to really to think that it can be organized as a composer. Also, if I did write some music on paper with traditional notes, but there is no so many occasions to listen to music, and when it happens, most of the time I feel that there is a lot of things I should do differently. So it's like very frustrating for me. And I really like to make something which is open, and also to organize the coming of people so they can, to give them a place, and so the visual art context was really for me a great access to realize part of my vision, and which can take its basis as a dream house. So the dream house is a principle for a piece from Young. It's an American composer from California, now he's living in New York. So in the 60s, he had an academic background, but then he went to different European festivals like Darmstadt with Stockhausen, Boulez, Luciano Berio in the 50s. He was a post-Weber composer. He did some work like string quartet, early string quartet, very post-Weber music. But in the 60s, or maybe the late 50s, he started doing the project of the Dream House. And it's not to reproduce what he's doing, but for me it's like a very, very important principle for the life, that it's a place where you can come and listen to the music, and the music is permanent, and you, some electronic device can be when there is no musician, but it's like open music for some music and for the dream. So the principle is established in our culture as ready-made from Marcel Duchamp, and also I will say but it is another example. I mean, yes, process for writing, for example, from William Burroughs, things like that. And Lamont Young had a very, very strong influence on the visual artists also. And I thought that now it's almost 60 years after he started doing this project, which exists not enough in New York because I have no money to pay to make it permanent. It's 2 days a week, something like that, for 24 hours, and you can go to the foundation. I don't remember his name. Sorry, the name of this place in Greenwich Village, and you can stay 4 hours if you want. And I think this is a very interesting situation for the music now, and it resumes in a certain way what is the modernity for the music, or part of it. A new approach will have no. So where is the present of this music? It's like the listener experience is the present of the music.
In relation to the listener, actually, I also wanted to ask about the way that you think about visitors to the exhibition. In fact, could we go back to that original clip that we had of the space, perhaps with no sound? There's a great number of artworks in the 21st century exhibition which kind of implicate the visitor in different ways, in different kind of experiential situations. And in your work, there's all these different elements that are kind of activated in the piece that produce the music. So there's the birds flying around, and of course every time the bird lands on a different point on one of the sculptures, a sound is produced. But of course there's also the point of view of the visitor, because the visitor's actions inside the gallery space have a very big effect on the sound as well, depending on how active they are, how much they move, how close they come to the birds. So I wondered if you could talk a bit about the degree to which you think about the visitor in the piece and the role that they have.
Yes, I did have some experience with asking the visitor to do something more active, but finally I found that the the simple presence of them in the space is very interesting, and it don't need to be. You don't need to. So the visitor is coming and is curious to see what is going on here, and if he approach a structure, we will activate the finches will try to stay from a certain distance. This reminds me that when I was working for the theater, I had a great position. They do not ask me anything as support for the, music to be. So in the theater, there is sometimes empty moment, and they ask the music, come the music to keep the, the dynamic of the performance. But when I did work with the company of Pascal Rambert in France, it was very open. They just asked me, can you make a music project, and we'll see how we are going to use it. So I was really, and was not attached to the dramaturgy, so I can do my own thing, and it was much more about surrounding sound environment than pure music. And something, many times I was looking at the actors or performer on the stage. I say they should not say anything. They just have to be here, And I was not very convinced that I like theater or not. So I was, but finally, this project of Aviary is like the result of what I thought 25 years ago, when I was working and was not so happy with all the aspects, psychology, which I like much more now, probably. But at the time I was thinking we have to replace the actors by tape recorder and things like that. And finally, it's like I could call it ethological theater. I will say something you can to see to look at the behavior of the finches, and in the same time, if there is some people, you can look at them. It's not so current that in the art gallery you can come to watch people looking at the art.
Well, I think one of the things that has struck all of us who've been into the space is the way that time really seems to slow down. That the experience you have as a visitor is fundamentally different to our normal experience in many gallery spaces. And I think one of the things, maybe it's about trying for the visitor to understand what is taking place and trying to understand the relationship between the movement of the birds and what you're hearing.
The motion is very important in my motion to be drive to the listening. So it's like a visual trap. It's very immediate. It's going fast. Sometimes you can globally know what it is. But for the music, it's like it needs to be in the time. So I'm sure that any display, music, people, it's like sculpture. If you look at the string quartet, musician playing violins and cello, it's like a flower. And we know that. But I thought that it was very important to give, because I'm quite attached to the score. So I had to translate what is a score. A score is not necessarily not on paper. It can be three-dimensional in the space. And it's just a question of how do you adjust the different levels, the motion, and yes, this was also the great opportunity I had to work in the visual art context, where I can decide for everything. It's not the same for a musician who is doing his music and just to be played in a context he doesn't know before he's doing. I'm not doing objects which are isolated from the very strong and physical context, contingents. I'm interested about this physicality. What is, how do you feel a space? Can I make, for example, the feeling? I did the piece also in École Nationale Supérieure des Beaux-Arts de Paris, and this is a very nice courtyard which have a glass, ceiling glass, and it's a very academic building, big, huge, and we did the cube made with scaffold and covered with closed fabric, transparent, as we use here a little bit. And it was the possibility to create a place into a place, which was totally, when you go and you enter the aviary, you were totally somewhere else.